My name is Nathan Parker. I'm 29 years old, living in a small apartment in San Diego. I work from home as a graphic designer, so I rely on food delivery services more than I should. For months, it had been a convenient and hassle-free way to get meals without stepping out. But last month, something happened that completely changed how I see those quick, easy deliveries. It was a Friday night. I'd worked late on a project and didn't feel like cooking, so I ordered dinner from my usual delivery app. The driver assigned to my order was named Chris. The app showed his picture, just a regular-looking guy in his mid-30s, clean-shaven with glasses. Nothing seemed off at first. When he arrived, I grabbed my food at the door, ready to thank him, and shut it. But Chris didn't leave right away. He smiled, lingered for a moment, and started making small talk. Busy night, he asked, glancing at my apartment door like he was trying to peek inside. Yeah, pretty busy, I replied, keeping the door half closed. I didn't want to be rude, but his questions started to feel intrusive. Do you live alone? He asked casually, then quickly added, I mean, just curious. This area seems quiet. That question set off alarms in my head. Yeah. Thanks for the food, I said quickly and shut the door. I thought it was odd, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was just trying to be friendly. Over the next week, I started noticing things that made me uneasy. On Sunday, I saw Chris's car parked across the street from my building. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence. Maybe he had another delivery nearby. But the next day, his car was there again, parked in the same spot. By Wednesday, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I walked up to the car, pretending to be on my phone. Sure enough, Chris was sitting in the driver's seat. He noticed me and rolled down the window with a wide smile. Hey, Nathan, he said like we were old friends. I frowned. What are you doing here? Oh, just taking a break between deliveries, he said, his tone light. Nice area to relax, you know. I didn't buy it. My neighborhood wasn't exactly a scenic spot. Right, I said coldly and walked away. That night, I double-checked all my locks. I couldn't shake the feeling that Chris was watching me. I debated calling the delivery service to report him, but I didn't have any solid proof of wrongdoing. Then came the note. On Thursday morning, I found it tucked under my windshield wiper. A single sentence, written in bold, messy letters. You can't avoid me forever. My stomach dropped. I scanned the parking lot, but there was no sign of Chris or his car. My hand shook as I crumpled the note and went back inside. This wasn't just some harmless delivery driver being friendly. This was something darker. I called the delivery app's customer service line and reported everything. The lingering questions, the car outside my building, the note. They apologized and promised to investigate, but it didn't feel like enough. That night, I saw Chris again. His car was parked a block away this time, but I could see him sitting there, watching. I called the police, my heart pounding as I waited for them to arrive. When the officers showed up, they questioned Chris and searched his car. What they found made my skin crawl. A small notebook with my name and address written on the first page, along with notes about other customers. Chris was taken into custody, and the police later told me he had been stalking multiple people he delivered to. He would gather personal information from small talk and delivery records, then obsessively follow his targets. I wasn't the only one who had been scared by his behavior, but I might have been the first to report it. Even after Chris was arrested, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I kept looking over my shoulder, double-checking my locks, and avoiding delivery apps altogether. Something as simple as ordering dinner had turned into a nightmare. I never thought much about the people who brought my food, just another part of the convenience of modern life. But now, I'm more cautious than ever. You never really know who's on the other side of that door, and sometimes their intentions are far from harmless. My name is Maya Patel. I'm 25 years old and live in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon. After a long day working as a marketing assistant, the last thing I want to do is cook. So I usually order dinner from the same local delivery app. It's convenient, fast, and I never had an issue. Until one night that turned my routine into something I'll never forget. It was a Thursday, and I was completely drained. I placed my usual order, pad thai and spring rolls, from a nearby restaurant I'd used countless times before. The app said the driver's name was Glenn, and he'd be arriving in about 20 minutes. Nothing out of the ordinary. When Glenn showed up, I was already halfway to the door. He seemed normal enough, middle-aged, wearing a baseball cap with a polite smile. But as he handed me the bag, I noticed something strange. The receipt taped to it had someone else's name and address on it, not mine. "Hey, I think this might be the wrong order," I said, holding the bag out to him. Glenn hesitated, his smile faltering for a second. Must have been a mix-up. Don't worry about it. Just keep it." That seemed odd. Normally, drivers would double-check or take the bag back to sort things out. But before I could ask more, he gave me a quick nod, turned, and walked briskly back to his car. Feeling confused, I checked the app on my phone. My order had been canceled. I hadn't canceled it, and now I was holding someone else's food. My gut told me something was off. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the bag. Instead of food containers, I found a cloth-wrapped object. My heart sank as I pulled the cloth back to reveal a large kitchen knife. Its blade was smeared with what looked like dried blood. My hands started shaking, and I quickly dropped the bag onto the table. Was this some kind of prank? A mistake? My mind raced. I called the restaurant to see if they could explain what was going on. "Hi," I said, my voice trembling. "I think there's been a mix-up with my delivery. The driver gave me the wrong bag, and..." "Wait, Glenn gave it to you?" the manager interrupted. "Yeah," I said, swallowing hard. "Why?" There was a long pause before the manager spoke again, his voice uneasy. "Glenn hasn't checked back in after his last delivery. We've been trying to reach him all evening." My stomach dropped. Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. I froze. My phone still pressed to my ear. I cautiously walked toward the door and peeked through the peephole. It was Glenn. He was standing there, shifting his weight from foot to foot, his polite smile now replaced with a cold, focused expression. "Maya," he called out, his voice muffled through the door. "I need that bag back." My heart pounded in my chest. "I think there's been a mistake," I stammered, loud enough for him to hear. "No mistake," he said, his tone sharp. "Just give me the bag, and I'll be on my way." Every instinct in me screamed not to open that door. "I've already called the restaurant," I lied, trying to sound calm. "They said they'll sort it out." There was a long silence. Then, in a low voice, Glenn said, "Open the door, Maya." I backed away, locking the deadbolt and every other lock I had. Grabbing my phone, I hung up on the restaurant and dialed 911. As I waited for the operator to answer, I heard Glenn jiggling the doorknob, then pounding on the door. "Maya, open up," he yelled, his voice growing more frantic. 911, what's your emergency? "There's a man outside my door," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "He's trying to get in. I think he's dangerous." The dispatcher assured me help was on the way, but every second felt like an hour. The pounding on my door stopped, and I heard footsteps retreating down the hall. I held my breath, listening for any sound, praying he was gone. When the police arrived, Glenn was nowhere to be found. They searched the area and took the bag and knife as evidence. Later, I learned the horrifying truth. The knife in the bag matched the weapon used in a murder earlier that evening. A man had been stabbed in his home just a few miles from my apartment. Glenn had been identified as the prime suspect and was eventually arrested a few days later. It turned out he had been using his delivery job as a cover, targeting random customers. I still don't know why he brought the knife to my door or what he planned to do if I had opened it. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep. Every time I heard a knock at my door, my heart would race. The thought that something as simple as ordering dinner could lead to such a terrifying encounter still haunts me. I haven't used a delivery app since, and I probably never will. My name is Leah. I'm 23 and live in a small apartment in Seattle, working nights at a call center. After long shifts, I often order takeout to save time and effort. My go-to is a salad from a cozy cafe nearby, always delivered through the same app. It was my safe routine, until one night, everything changed. It was a Thursday, just past midnight. I'd gotten home late, exhausted, and too hungry to sleep. I placed my usual order, paid through the app, and waited. The driver's name was Mark, someone I hadn't seen before. His profile picture didn't stand out. Just an average guy in his 30s with a baseball cap. When Mark arrived, he handed me the delivery bag. Immediately, I noticed something odd. It was much heavier than usual. My salad couldn't weigh this much. I thanked him quickly and shut the door, brushing it off as a mistake. Curious, I opened the bag. My salad container was there, but so was something else. A tightly sealed brown package with no label. It felt bulky and solid. At first, I thought it might be a mistake from the cafe, but when I shook it gently, I heard a faint rustling sound inside. I ripped the package open, and my heart nearly stopped. Inside were bundles of cash, tightly wrapped in rubber bands. It looked like thousands of dollars. My hands trembled as I stared at it, my mind racing. Why was this in my bag? Panicked, I called the cafe. "Hi, I just got my order, but there's something extra in the bag," I stammered. The manager sounded confused. "Extra? What do you mean?" "There's a package, full of money," I whispered, glancing nervously at my locked door. Silence. Then he replied, "We don't send anything like that. Are you sure it's from us?" I hung up, my heart pounding. Something wasn't right. I started to think about Mark, the driver. Had he put it there by mistake? Or worse, on purpose? Then came the knock. It was loud and frantic, echoing through my quiet apartment. I froze, clutching my phone. Peeking through the peephole, I saw Mark standing there, his face tense and angry. "Hey, I need that package back," he shouted, pounding on the door. I backed away, trying to steady my breathing. "I've already called the police," I lied, hoping to scare him off. The pounding stopped for a moment, but then he yelled again, more aggressively, "Open the door. Now." I grabbed my phone and actually called the police. Whispering to the operator, I explained the situation, my voice shaky. She told me to stay on the line and keep the door locked until officers arrived. Mark kept shouting, his voice muffled but menacing. "You don't know what you're messing with. Just give it back." I could hear him pacing outside, muttering to himself. Every second felt like an eternity. What if he broke down the door? What if he had a weapon? Finally, red and blue lights lit up my window, and I heard the sound of car doors slamming. Mark must have seen them too, because his voice stopped abruptly. When I peeked again, he was gone. The police searched the area and found him trying to hide in the stairwell. After detaining him, they questioned me about the package. I handed it over, still shaken. It turned out Mark had been using his delivery job as a cover to transport stolen money for a local crime ring. He must have mixed up the bags and realized his mistake too late. My refusal to open the door had likely saved me from being forced into a dangerous situation. The officers assured me I was safe now, but the terror of that night stayed with me. I couldn't stop thinking about how easily things could have gone wrong. All I wanted was a salad, but I ended up in the middle of something I never could have imagined. I stopped using delivery apps after that. It's been weeks, but every time I hear a knock at the door, my chest tightens. It's a simple routine I'll never take for granted again.